Okay, in order to prepare you guys for our next day of networking lab tomorrow, I thought I would drop just another little evening video to get your mind thinking about VPN, short for virtual private networks. Now, I imagine you guys have heard the buzzword VPN before. You probably use VPN on your internships if you work from home. But in case you've never used a VPN or you're not familiar with it, I thought I would give you just a little primer to get you ready for what we're going to do in class tomorrow. Okay. So I thought in order for me to demonstrate what VPN does before we go into the technical side of it, instead of me doing that, maybe I can just show you some of the cool stuff that VPN does, virtual private networks, what they do. So I'm actually going to get out of this PowerPoint for a second, and I'm going to open up Google Chrome, and we're going to go in, and I'm going to show you my actual IP address for a second. So if I pop into what's my IP, this is my actual IPv6 address, and it says that I am here on the north side of Indiana. That is legit. That's actually where I'm at. This is my actual external IP address, which is dynamic, so that'll change after a while through my ISP. Okay, so let's just make a little computer guy magic here. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to connect to a VPN. Might take just a second. Did we get it? Still connecting. Almost there. There we go. So I've connected to a VPN. Okay. So if I do a little refresh here, hey, look at that. My IP address has changed to 196.52.3927. Now we've established that I'm here in Indiana, except now it kind of looks like I'm up in Chicago. Yeah? So how did that happen? How was I able to switch from my actual IP address to a different IP address that makes it appear as if I am in Chicago? I was able to do that using VPN, or a virtual private network connection. Okay. So what is that? Why is it important, and what are we going to do with it in class tomorrow? That's what I want to talk to you guys about for just a second. VPN, it's a pretty cool thing. So VPN in general. So first of all, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it uses external internet connection lines, so public owned IP, or excuse me, network connectivity lines. Okay, but it gives you the ability to set up an encrypted tunnel within that, so you can have a connection from point A to point B, but you have that encrypted, so no one else that's on that public network can actually see what you're transmitting. They can't watch, they can't eavesdrop on the information that you're seeing. So it does a couple things really well for you. It ensures that your data is secure. It hides what you're doing, so it gives you the ability to conduct business in a more secure way. So people watching those external connections, watching those IP packets going over the network, can't see what's actually happening, and it can even be used to mask your IP address. You'll see this quite a bit when you work with remote employees, right? So you have your own laptop, you travel out in the field, you want to connect to the network, you want to share private information. You can use that using a VPN, virtual private network, that masks or encrypts the data that you're sending back and forth, but it's doing it over a public transmitted network connection. Okay, so VPN. A little bit more about what we talked about. Okay, a little bit of offsite. It's definitely more secure. And the backbone that you would use for this particular case, instead of it being a fiber optic backbone, for example, or a gigabit backbone that we would have on campus, for example, it's actually your public internet that can be provided by anybody as the actual backbone of your network. Obviously, it saves a lot of cost. It's infinitely scalable, just like the internet is scalable, but it does require special software in order to set that up and work, and it does require some kind of service running as well, or a protocol running in order to make that work. Okay, so we're going to set this up in class tomorrow. We're going to set up virtual private networks between our countries within the lab tomorrow. So what's that going to look like? Okay, here's an example of a business, right? So here's our headquarters back here on the left. Now, you know that in order to get to the outside world, to get off network, you have to have a router, okay? And usually there's going to be some kind of security, so we'll have a firewall there set up in order to protect us from outside connectivity. So now on the other side of that firewall, you have the cloud. Now, we've learned a lot about the cloud. We know that the cloud is basically just the internet or other people's computers, or another way to put it is just parts of networking that we don't care about because they don't belong to us. But if you have a remote office, if you have someone that has a telecommuter, for example, or if you have someone that travels, like a traveling sales rep, and they want to connect from here to here. Well, sure, you could just use the internet in order to do that, but remember, if we use this public internet cloud here in order to connect from here to here, when we poke a hole through that firewall in order to let this message come through, anybody that's eavesdropping will actually be able to see that information, right? So anything happening here, they'll be able to view it once it hits that public cloud. Okay, so what a VPN does is it takes this signal right in here and it encrypts it. It basically carves out a little piece of the internet that makes it private specifically to you. Now, how it does that through either IPsec or SSL or TLS are things you don't have to worry about at this level of your career. It just know that it uses a type of encryption that makes this private, so you won't be able to see what's happening outside of this tunnel. So it'll create a tunnel for you to send messages, but the only thing people in this cloud will be able to see is the actual tunnel. And I've got another picture of that for you to see, okay? Let me skip through these a little bit so you can see the picture that I want to show you, okay? So here's the exact same concept, right? Here is an employee working from home, for example. Now it's slightly different because it's working from home instead of a business, okay? But the concept's the same. So if this is you working from home, working remotely, okay, obviously you have to have access to the internet. You're going to have that through your ISP, okay? Now, obviously, that connection goes through the internet layer protocol stack, right? SMTP, all that stuff we talked about, okay? TCP/IP, okay? So what we're going to do is when we connect to that ISP, it's going to go through this secured tunnel. So if you use VPN, when you hit the internet, okay, this line from here to wherever it is you're trying to connect is now going to be secured. So it's a secure digital tunnel, okay, that's set up using IP security. And now anyone that's out here in this cloud will only be able to see the tunnel, but they won't be able to see the information passing through the tunnel, which is why earlier when I showed you my IP address and then it changed is because you were seeing the IP address of the VPN tunnel, not the information that I was sending through the tunnel. Okay, so it's a good example of how that works. Okay, here's another example. Okay, so let's say that you have an office, okay? Let's say you have multiple offices. For example, you have multiple campuses. So let's say that Butler has a remote campus downtown or on the north side of Indy. Then you have the main campus, but then you have students that actually telecommute as well. So let's say that our main office is here, our north side office is here, and then we've got just random students that telecommute as well. Well, the benefit of this is to set up this wide area network. We can use the internet as our backbone. Okay, so we're going to use publicly owned lines basically to transmit that information. Now, the trick is, like I told you, anyone that's floating around in this internet has the ability to look at non encrypted packets and see whatever it is you're transmitting, basically eavesdrop. So if you use VPN, what it's going to do is it's going to create this private tunnel right here. And then anything that goes through that tunnel cannot be seen by the outside world. Okay, you'll only be able to see this external part, not the internal part. So in this case, you've got two different connections. You have a VPN to two offices in two geographic locations. So office one, north side office 2, VPN between the two, okay? You have a work from home employee, right, that has their own ISP, internet service provider. They connect to their ISP, which gives them internet access like I'm doing right now. Then they connect to a VPN, which then makes that information going from office to home office private this way, okay? So that's pretty much how VPN works. So what are you guys going to do tomorrow? Well, just pretend that this is your table of students, right? And this is another table of students, okay? We're going to create private connections between those two using VPN. I've got a secondary document that talks a little bit about the commands that you'll need in order to do that. Feel free to check it out. We'll also walk you through it in class, but I just wanted to give you a little introduction just so you can get comfortable with the idea of VPN. I will see you tomorrow, my friends.